what's up? My name is Makai and welcome back to Wellness Wednesday. For today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys as to why I feel as though everyone should live abroad and talking about my experience from living in an Asian country being a Black American. I'm going to give you guys a quick recap of who I am if you're just seeing this video. My name is Makai, nice to meet you, and I started my YouTube channel maybe about a year ago by the time I posted this video, and my first video was me traveling. Well, it wasn't the first time I was traveling abroad. I went to Europe to see my best friend, but like traveling completely solo, like really not knowing anyone. And it was honestly a wake-up call. I remember when I first got to the airport and my car service like was not there, and I was completely freaking out. I had no idea where I was, and I kept calling them, and my phone didn't have a SIM card, so I had to get Wi-Fi, and I had like 3 suitcases with me. Also, I packed too much to go to Vietnam. But yeah, it was completely terrifying, and it was hot as Methuselah in Vietnam. I got there in July, and it was monsoon season. It was raining, it was muddy, and I was like, ugh. So yeah, that was my first experience, and I paid way too much for my car service, and it was just, looking back on it, it's just so funny to think that that's the person that I was. So yeah, I really just felt like this was a perfect time for me to talk about this video and to talk about my experience through this video. And I've been very reluctant to talk about it. I've only really talked about how I felt with my best friend Natalie and my family that I met in Vietnam. So yeah, we're just gonna see how this video goes, and let's get right into it. I first want to talk about the reason as to why I went to Vietnam. So I was not in a very good place when I decided to go to Vietnam. I was very lost. I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I kind of felt like life was passing me by and I was not doing anything. And I also saw a lot of people that were just going to work and they like weren't traveling and anything like that. And granted, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with like working a 9 to 5, but it was just like I didn't want that for myself. And I was just like, I wanted something different, and I wanted to go out and see this whole other world out there. And I just felt like life was going by and I was just sitting there kind of watching everything like a movie. So I decided that I was a teacher for about a year in Prince George's County. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna travel and I'm gonna see how it is. So I decided to go to teach in Vietnam, and everyone thought I was crazy. They were like, you're going to Vietnam, you know they don't like Black people over there, yada yada yada. And honestly, that was my first thought, like when I was going to an Asian country, and I was like, well, I don't think that I'm the most liked person over there, but I don't think it'll be that bad, you know. And I am a very optimistic person, so I was like, it'll be fine. Like I wasn't thinking about it, and I also think that I was also very naive in terms of walking into something, because I don't think that it's so much of it being prejudice, but it's just sometimes people don't know. Like people genuinely do not know. When I moved to Vietnam, I realized people looked at me, they were purely curious, and they were like, a lot of people have never seen a Black woman before, and they were just like kind of just staring at me and, you know, giving me stares, asking me where I was, touching my hair, which was really annoying. But I think that it gave me a respect for other people's culture and like not to prejudge them. And I was like, okay, like why do they have these feelings toward me when I know nothing about them? And why are they prejudging me just based off the color of my skin? And I think I realized that it's such a deep-rooted issue in the world, not just in America, that people have a natural problem with people who have darker skin. And it goes so deep, like it goes back centuries. It's not just in America, it's worldwide. And I think that's something that really got to me and really upset me, because I was just like, it travels this far that just because I'm darker and just because my hair is curly or what have you, you think a certain way about me when you know absolutely nothing about me. So it was very disheartening, I feel like, when I first went there. It kind of made me second guess who I was as a person. It made me very uncomfortable in my own skin. And when I first got there, I really didn't want to embrace who I was. I kind of just wanted to hide and like not do anything. But I'm going to talk about more how I kind of got to where I am now through living in Vietnam. But yeah, when I first got there, I did not feel very good about myself, and I felt very small. I felt like a really small fish in like a huge, overwhelming pond, basically. So my first question I want to get into was why I feel as though everyone should live in a foreign country. I think everyone should live in a foreign country because it's just important. Like, you being exposed to other people's cultures, their beliefs, is important to put your own values into perspective. For me personally, I feel like it just made me think about what I really value in my life and who I really think I was as a person. When you see so many people around you, and Vietnamese people are very kind, they're very sweet, and they're also very community based, which is something that I really love and admire, because here in America, we are not that way at all. As you can see, we're very individualized, unfortunately, and we only care about ourselves, and we can be very selfish. But Vietnamese people, they have this very kind-hearted way about them that I really enjoyed, that really helped me kind of get through the racism that I did face in Vietnam. I did have those people who made me feel very welcomed. So I just feel like seeing that and comparing it to how I grew up, or like my environment, or me being in American culture, I guess you can say, it kind of put things in perspective to me and kind of taught me how I want to live my life or how I want to treat other people. So yeah, I just feel like it's important. You don't just want to stay where you always grew up. You don't even have to live abroad for a long period of time. Like, do it for 6 months, do it for a month, do it for a year, like whatever you feel as though is good for you. I just feel like it's super important, especially for self-growth, that you do that. You owe it to yourself, I feel like. If you can, of course. How did I prepare living abroad, being a black woman, being a black American woman? Guys, I really don't think I prepared. I was super naive, to be completely honest with you. I think I just jumped right in. I did my research. I was just like, how is living in Vietnam for a black person? And I felt like a lot of the things that I watched were kind of washed over. I don't really think they really talked about it too much. And I was like, oh, things will be fine, and they won't care. It's not true. They do care about the color of your skin. They're not going to be flat out about it. They're going to be low-key about it. And that's something that really irritated me as well, especially getting jobs and things of that sort. It did affect the type of jobs that I did get while I was a teacher in Vietnam. And it made me look at things a lot differently. And I was just like, no one gives a flying crap about what you can really bring to the table. All they care about is your exterior. And that really made me second guess who I was as a person, because I was just like, what does it matter if I'm a good person? Like, I can be a complete piece of crap. They're not going to care because they think that I'm this horrible person just because I wear an afro and my skin is dark, basically. And that really messed with my head a lot when I was first going to get jobs, because I would see people get jobs who were less qualified than me, but they were white. And I would be like, oh, all right. And then when I got back to the United States, and I was like, it's no different here. It's the same. It's just like the same gist. And I felt like that just really messed with me. But I just feel like if I can go back and tell myself, I would say, everything you think you know, you don't. Everything you think you know about people, culture, all your research, you know nothing. Nothing can prepare you from what you're walking into, because only a few amount of people have done what you've done. So I would say take it with a grain of salt, walk with your head up, and keep it moving. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people don't mean to be rude or be mean or to down you when you go to these countries. It's just the way they were brought up. They don't know any better or know any different. Some people do, and like you can kind of tell that, and that's when your intuition comes in. But sometimes people have just never seen someone who looks like you, and they don't know any better. They don't know that you're the best, most beautiful person in the world, and that's just their loss. So I would just say, take it with a grain of salt. Find a close group of people that you feel really comfortable with. Talk to them about it. Don't keep it in, because that was something that I did at the start, and I wish that I didn't, I guess. But yeah, I would just say, you know nothing. And all the research that you're going to do is not going to prepare you. Only walking right into it is going to prepare you. So just don't be afraid to, I guess. That's what I would say to my past self, I guess. What challenges did I face being a black woman living in an Asian country? So the first thing, I think being underestimated was the first thing. I don't think people expected me to be the way that I was, which is kind of funny. Like, I really didn't get that. They were just like, oh, you're really nice and you're hardworking. I would be like, yeah, that's such an odd misconception to me, that worldwide people see Black or Africans as non-hardworking people. are you fucking kidding me? Like, we built this whole country. Like, what do you mean we're not hardworking? And that made me so angry because I was just like, I've been working since I was 15. Like, this is second nature to me. Like, I can do what you can do 10 times better. And it made me angry that they had this misconception, not off what I did, just based off the way I looked. And it made me look at the whole world differently. I was not naive at all once I left Vietnam. I saw things for what they were. If it was purple, if it was black, I saw it. I didn't try to shade it in at all. And before I went, I always tried to do that. I always tried to see the good in people. But also, I think living in Vietnam, I realized that some people don't have that. Some people are just the way that they're going to be, and you just have to deal with that. You can't try to change people. You just have to work and change yourself and adapt and figure out ways to deal with it. But yeah, that's one thing that I learned. I feel like I've learned a lot of things, but I feel like one thing that I have learned is that some people are going to be the way that they're going to be. There's nothing you can do about it. Another challenge that I think that I faced was not having a lot of people to relate to when I was in Vietnam. Don't get me wrong, there are people of color who go and teach in Asian countries. Like, there's so many of us. But in the large spectrum of things, there is a small amount. So and every situation is different. Like, no person's situation is the same. So that's why it's so hard to kind of gauge how it's going to be for you. But yeah, I think that was my biggest challenge, is just really not feeling like I had anyone there that kind of looked like me and that I could relate to, and still feeling lost just because I felt like everyone's different. Like, how can I base one person's experience off of mine? Like, I have no idea what the background is and things of that sort. So lack of comparison, I feel like, was a big challenge for me. But once I found my group in Vietnam, they definitely helped me through that. I talk about them all the time. Basically, Faith and Shanice, they were like my backbone when I was in Vietnam, and they completely understood what I was going through. And when I needed to talk about it late at night, when I needed to cry with them, they would do it with me. So I feel like also those challenges can be offset when you find a good group of people, no matter their ethnic background, no matter where they come from, as long as they have a capacity to understand what you're going through, it helps so much. So another question I wanted to talk about was, how did you create your own travel experience that reflected who you was as a person? So I had a few people tell me, oh, I would never want to do that and this and that. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, I would never want to do what you do. And again, that's perfectly fine. But I think that I needed to first ask myself what I wanted. Like, what was I going to get out of this experience going to Vietnam? Did I want to get money? Did I want to get travel experience? Did I want to come out of it a better person? And for me, it was all three of those things. I wanted to travel. Traveling is super important to me because the world is so huge. And I'm like, I want to see every spectrum of it as much as I can. And the second part was I wanted to figure out who I really was as a person. I know everyone says this, and it's just like everyone's like, I'm self-discovery, but I truly was. I have suffered from depression ever since I was about 15 years old, and I was just kind of getting to a spot where I was just like, I need to figure out who I am so I can get better and experience life and be a happier person. So those things was just essential for me. So once I sat down and told myself those are the three things that I needed, everything I did surrounded those things. It was kind of like my bubble. So every move I made, I was like, what is it crossing off? Like, what am I completing? What am I accomplishing? So for me, I feel like you first have to ask yourself who you are. And if you don't know who you are, ask yourself what you want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, then you need to figure it out. Like, I just feel like those two things really help you kind of narrow down you making your own experience, your own travel experience, your own, and not someone else's. Because especially with social media, you look at everything, you're like, oh, I want to do that, and I want to do that. I'm like, do you really though? Like, do you really want to have that travel Instagram, or do you just want to be a writer? Do you really want to travel the world, or do you just want to do that just because you see Suzanne doing it? So I just feel like you really have to sit down, have a hard conversation with yourself, and kind of have blinders on and not look around everyone around you, basically. Sorry guys, I'm getting tongue twisted. This is also a very difficult conversation for me to have. So yeah. Did you ever feel lonely in Vietnam? Yep. Yep, I felt lonely. Yeah, I felt lonely because Being in Vietnam made me feel like who I was as a person wasn't good enough. It made me feel as though my skin basically gave me a cap to who I was meant to be in life. And that's a very it's a very sad feeling for anyone to feel, and it kind of makes you like think about who started this, like who had this idea that that was okay. So I think I really had to like reconstruct what I thought about myself. Sorry. One second. But yeah, I just think I had to reconstruct of what I thought about myself as a person, and realizing that my skin is not the cap. My skin makes me limitless, and regardless of what society, what the world tries to make me to believe, like I'm not alone. And just because I am this beautiful black woman, it doesn't stop me. Like, I am unstoppable. Of course, I'm gonna have a lot more harder obstacles, unfortunately, than some people, but it doesn't mean that I'm not worthy of something, and it doesn't mean that I cannot achieve something. And yeah, so it definitely made me feel alone, but loneliness is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it helps you to realize what's right in front of you the whole time, which was myself. And I feel like that's why I do talk about self-love so much on my channel, because I found that in myself when I moved to Vietnam. Just because when you're lonely, you don't have anyone else. Like, you don't have anyone to hug. You have yourself. So I was lonely, but it also just taught me how to love myself. So what can you do? All right, another question I wanted to talk about: how did going to Vietnam make you feel about being a Black American? To be honest, I was very angry at first. I was frustrated because it made me question who I was, and I was just like, I don't want to say I hated my skin. I just like hated the situation. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, and I don't know if anyone would get what I'm trying to convey, but I didn't hate my skin per se, but I hated the situation that I felt like my skin was putting me in, if that makes sense. And I don't know if anyone else has ever felt this way before, but I just kind of felt like I was damned if I do, damned if I don't. Know which way I go is going to be good enough. Like, I can be the best person in the world and you're still going to think crap of me. And I think in those situations you have either two ways to go. You can either like run from who you are or embrace who you are. And I think in that situation I completely embraced who I was. I wasn't going to shy away from the fact that I was this Black American in a foreign Asian country. I was going to embrace it and be myself and love who I was. So it definitely made me feel a certain way about my skin. But at the end of it, I felt like I have more of an appreciation of my culture, my people, and what I look like. So definitely walking into it, I definitely had some hard feelings. But walking out of it, not at all. Alright guys, so my last question is, what would you say to a little girl if she wanted to do something just like you? I would tell her to go for it. I would say, don't listen to people when they try to project their fears onto you. It is their fears, not your own. I would say it will be a beautiful experience, and a lot of the times you will enlighten people that you wouldn't think that you would have any other way. And I want to say that my experience in Vietnam was a beautiful one. It was painful and it was eye-opening, but by no means necessary would I take it back. Like, I love Vietnamese people and the way that they opened their culture to me, that they really didn't have to. And I met really kind people while I was over there. It was this one lady, her name was, well, okay, so me and Faith, we kind of called everyone Co. That was kind of like our nicknames, but Co is basically someone who's an older woman. It's kind of like a grandma in Vietnam. And we would have like OG Co, we would have Snail Co, and it was basically because we didn't really know their names or we couldn't remember them. So where we first met them, that was kind of like their name. And so we had OG Co. OG Co was this lady. She owned a restaurant with her husband, and she had the best food and was super cheap. And every time she saw me, she had the biggest smile on her face. And her husband was super kind to me, always trying to teach me Vietnamese as much as possible. and I just really enjoy walking to their environment, because sometimes when I would walk out, I kind of felt judged. But when I walked in, they will always be like, you look nice today, or I like your hair. And it was just little things like that that really helped me. And then you had Snail Co. And so her family kind of owned this snail stand. And she would always come by and see me and Faith. And Faith, her Vietnamese is a lot better than mine. Well, it always kind of was. She was always learning a lot more Vietnamese than me, her and Shanice. But she would say certain things, and we would kind of like try to talk back and forth, and she would try to get like her grandsons or nephews to kind of talk for us so we can have a conversation. But it was definitely those experiences that trump all the other experiences that I did have in Vietnam. So I would say, even though you do have dark moments, everything else as a whole can be very beautiful. But if you only look at those dark moments, it can be very easy to kind of chalk something up as a horrible experience. But for me, it wasn't horrible. It was just an eye-opening, and it just taught me that sometimes I'm going to have to work a little bit harder than other people. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to be at the same spot as them. It means I'm going to be further than them. And my skin doesn't stop me from going to where I want to go. It's just kind of like my shield to push me there. So I would just say, you're going to have bad moments anywhere you go. You're going to have bad moments here. You can have bad moments overseas. It really just depends on how you utilize those bad moments and how you perceive them as well. So I would say go for it. And I'll help you pack if you want to go. Alright guys, so this was honestly, I'm so like hot right now. I was so nervous to record this video, to be completely honest, but I'm very happy that I did. And I really just hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I answered as many questions as possible. And I was really just trying to be transparent as much as I can about my experience and how I felt about different things. And again, don't allow racism to stop you from going anywhere. I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't like when people say, oh, you can't go somewhere because they don't like black people there. They don't like me anywhere I go. So you're not gonna stop me from going somewhere just because they quote unquote don't like me. Racism is alive and well, and it is alive in places that you wouldn't think that they should be alive in. So I don't feel as though anyone should not go somewhere just because a place might be racist. Everywhere has racism, and all you have to do is brace yourself with knowledge, carry yourself like always, and walk right into it, because no one should be able to dictate where we're able to go. It's absolutely ridiculous. I won't be that person. But as always, I hope you guys really enjoyed and loved this video. If you have any questions for me, or if you kind of want to travel abroad and you don't really know how, please message me. I'm really open to talking about it more now than I was before. But yeah, so if you like this video, you already know what to do. And if you didn't like it, you probably make it this far anyway. And I'll see you guys on Saturday. Bye.